Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Show. Here's what we have for you. I've got a Thelin. Woohoo! Yeah, the Dons are gonna be alright. I gave this so much, but now I'm feeling really bad. Elsewhere, Rooney Tunes. Madness at St Mirren Park this weekend. And what's the worst £30 you've ever spent? Yes, hello, it's me, Andrew Slaven, back again for the Scottish Football Show. What a week it has been. My goodness. Been watching St Mirren, Kilmarnock, absolute wild scenes. If you're watching anything else, pretty standard stuff. But there you go. We're going to get stuck into a really exciting show this week. Joining me is a lady who loves to laugh at her own sentences. Yes, she is a Tartan Army super soldier and senior producer at TNT Sports. Laura Brannan. Hello, pal.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. I don't know why I'm slagging you off for laughing at your own sentence. I just giggle like the cookie from Shrek. I know. I laugh at all my own stuff. I'm like an old man. Uh, joining us also is a man from the future, 9 hours ahead of us, over in beautiful Australia, creative director of Melbourne FC, Findlay Marks. Hello, pal.
Hello, how's it going?
Very well, very well. I'm not bringing up the weather like I used to back in the day. Is it winter or is it actually summer in Australia right now?
I'm not bringing up the weather,
But
what's
then I
the weather
will.
like over there?
See, I'm just an old guy.
It's spring and it's cold still, so yeah, just waiting for that Christmas heat to arrive sometime soon, hopefully.
Right, we've introduced this new segment at the start, Laura. Some industry questions. Did we get any questions in the week?
Yeah, I think this is a good kind of segment just to ask us a little bit about working in the industry. If anyone wants any insights or even any tips on how to get into the industry, send your questions in.
I'd love to
ask
know.
us whatever you want. We're not the biggest experts, but at least we know something. We know one or two things. The one we got in this week, Morgan Clue asked, have you worked for a club you're a fan of? And does that help or hinder it?
Nope.
So you've not, Andrew. Finn, I dare say you're not a Melbourne City fan. Does that make a difference?
Well, I didn't grow up a Melbourne City fan, but I have growing up. Like obviously, I'm a Rangers fan, but growing up watching the English Premier League for a long time, I've watched Tottenham have kind of been my English team, which is a conflict of interest with Big Ange being there now. But I have worked for Tottenham quite a bit in the last number of years before I moved to Australia, and it's a novelty. Like it's fun working for a club that you kind of support. It does help a little bit in that you just know certain bits of the history, certain characters. Like if you're editing old Derby, North London Derby videos, you probably won't include any footage of Sol Campbell. It's helpful to have knowledge like that when you're doing it. But then at the same time, like kind of when the shoe's on the other foot, at the end of the day, you're professional, so you kind of work regardless of what it's done. I've also worked for the England national team, Laura. I'm sorry to say, I've worked for the
Get
FA.
him off this show right now.
And having you know, like having a soft spot for Spurs, I've also worked for Chelsea and done some stuff kind of for Arsenal as well through Copa 90 work. So you always just try and do the best that you can do with stuff. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun working for a club that you kind of support and have that little thing for. It does give you an extra kick. I think when you see the work come out at the other end of it, and you know that you're attached to this work that's coming out. That's pretty cool. That you've worked for them.
I have worked in environments where I'm working with people who are working on football where it's their team that they support, and they sometimes, you know, if you're in a TV gallery or if you're in a OB truck outside the ground, and you see some people throw their toys at the pram, it's so enjoyable to watch. But for the most part, like nobody really, it doesn't stop them from doing their job. Do you know what I mean? But it's certainly fun for everyone else.
How was it for you, Laura? Like, you didn't grow up a Motherwell fan. I know you've worked for a number of different clubs, but obviously you're kind of well known for your work at Motherwell. But did you find yourself kind of garnering a support for the club as you work for them?
Yes, I worked at Celtic first, then I went to Motherwell and I worked at West Ham. I grew up with Celtic in my family, so I went into that job with a good knowledge of the club. And as you're saying, Finn, it definitely helps. It helps to understand the background, the history, if you're talking about different games, if you're trying to source former players and understand the context of who you're talking to, all that helps massively. But then I went to Motherwell, and I never ever had a connection with Motherwell. I'm very openly a Scotland fan. I don't have a club, so maybe it's a little bit different for me because I don't have a rival club to work for. But going into Motherwell, it's such a small, tight, close knit club it's really everyone worked so closely together, and you develop such a bond between the staff and the players, and that made such a difference. And having experienced Celtic and then experienced West Ham after Celtic before it, West Ham after it, I've seen all sides of it from a club perspective. And because Motherwell was such a tight environment, and we lived and breathed the job, we worked like ridiculous shifts just because we cared so much, and it became such a passion project for us that you can't help but like kind of fall in love with the club. And I'm never going to say, oh, I'm a Motherwell fan, I'm a diehard, and I'll support for the rest of my days. I'm not going to pretend that because I'm a Scotland fan, but they'll always have a special place in my heart. And I learned so much about the club when I was working there. So kind of against what I said about it does help to know the history. I kind of went in without that background knowledge, and I grew to understand it, and I grew to have a real connection with the fans. And that will stay there at least for a long time. I can't say it'll be there forever, but like I've left the club, I still watch other games, I'm still following everything that happens. So you definitely develop that as well if you've got a good relationship there.
Would you say, Laura, that working in club football, if it's say your first kind of foray into like broadcast media kind of or journalism, it's a really good kind of place to start to learn your career? Because lots of great people have came from club media, like Emma Dodds, who's like all over Scottish football, is presented for Premier Sport, presented for BT Sports, does Champions League for TNT Sports. She came from Rangers TV. There's loads of people like that, and there's lots of people I know have came from Real Madrid TV, and they break through that kind of barrier and get into your TV screens or every day. But like yourself, who comes from a lot of club media and now working for a major broadcaster like TNT Sports, like it's a good place to start, but you shouldn't get too complacent in club media, maybe. Would you say?
It helps give you a grounding and an understanding of how the kind of football industry works, because you're seeing it from inside, but you're also seeing the outside of that as well on a match day. You're seeing all the outside broadcasts coming in, and a lot of times, especially at a small club, you're dealing with them as well. So you're actually meeting a lot of the media that way as well. You're making good contacts, but you're well, depending on what club it is, but you may be doing it to a smaller audience, and that gives you a good grounding and a good kind of confidence base. Like, for example, when I started off at Celtic, I did stuff for Celtic TV. But I don't know how many people watched that. And I don't want to know who watched me back in my day. I mean, I was straight out of uni, I had no experience whatsoever, and I was put on a TV channel. And it's scary, and I was probably god awful at it, but it gave me the confidence to then go on and make the mistakes at an early stage when not a lot of people were watching it, to then go on to bigger and better jobs moving forward.
Not a lot of people realize like there's more power behind the camera. Everyone kind of thinks
it's much more enjoyable behind the camera.
Everyone kind of thinks, oh, I want to be a presenter. I was quite keen to do it at one point, or reporting, and I have done it in the past. But there's way more, you're in control more if you're behind that camera and you're pulling the strings. People might think that so and so is a great presenter, but there's a producer behind the scenes that might be feeding certain lines and certain questions.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot that goes on, and a lot of hard work goes on behind the scenes. It's not just what you see on screen. But yeah, that was really interesting.
No, definitely. If you're thinking of a job in media, it's not just who's the star of the show, because as you're saying, there's so many people behind the scenes. There's so many different jobs, so there's so many different options as well.
So many great producers out there that just
it's not just the
do a
face of
great
it.
job all the time.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks.
I was talking about myself, clearly. Right, okay. bit of a fun time now. Can you tell me something that I can have a laugh at over the last week or over the weekend that has happened? Laura, you kick things off. I'll stay with you.
Have you seen what Dundee United are selling?
Oh yeah, I asked for a laugh.
Yeah, I don't know if you can laugh at this, but it's ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. So if
It's
you've got
not-
a spare £30 and you want to own something for just 12 months, you can have a bit of virtual pitch, part of the Tannadice pitch, virtually. You don't get the grass, you don't get a turf of anything, you don't physically get to hold anything, you get a digital piece of the turf for 30 quid.
That's bonkers, absolute bananas. So it's like the NFTs that immediately
Yeah.
like failed. Remember when John Terry started selling NFTs and then it all disappeared? All that stuff that was going on. It's just bonkers. I mean, your granddad's a Dundee fan, not Dundee United. I was going to say he would not be a happy man.
No. Do you know what it reminded me of? My old flatmate and I and a friend, we went on a whiskey trip to Isla a number of years ago,
Very nice.
going around the different distilleries, and I think it was the Lagavulin distillery, or one of them, I can't remember, Lafroig maybe. They have this thing where you can not buy part of the distillery, but the peat land where they dig up the peat that they then smoke to make as part of the whiskey making process. You can buy, I think it's a square foot for like 20 quid or whatever. So you kind of own part of the distillery in a way for that stuff. And you get to, after you've done the distillery tour, go out and see the field, and you get to walk into it and find out where your patch is and everything like that. And it costs 20 quid. And I still think that's one of the most pointless things I've ever bought in my entire existence.
Oh, you bought it?
You know, well, field on whiskey after the tour, right? But I got to go to the actual grass that I bought, and I own that forever, right? Until it's dug up and it makes delicious whiskey.
My dad has done exactly the same thing, and he's got a photo of him at the same a
Yes.
turf of grass.
Oh my
But
God,
that's
wow.
literally a turf of grass. He can touch that grass, and that's what's
I
different.
touched it. I've got it, and it is still one of the most pointless things I've ever bought. So for you to pay more than that for a digital patch of grass that you can't touch and that you only own for a year,
It doesn't exist. It's just
game's gone.
It's a
Game's
thing.
gone is the phrase.
It's not even.
It is absolutely nonsense.
So it's not just Dundee United though. Like I think I saw the first people who signed up to this was the SFA. Yeah, the SFA for Hampden, and I think have Livingston done it as well.
I think that's also one that's in the works.
So, like-
it's a dangerous route to go down. The clubs will see the big pound signs when these companies come in and go, "Oh, we can give you this money."
I'm
to do
sorry,
this."
but will they?
Don't get sucked into it.
Will those clubs? Do they actually do they think that's a good idea?
It depends who's running their
Oh, but I
commercial
mean,
and
come
marketing
on,
departments, I
use
guess.
some common sense. It's also
Yeah.
taking advantage of some super fans that, let's face it, they might not be super rich, but they love their club and they will support the club. It's taking the piss, man. It's well
What
out
do
of
you actually
order.
get? Do you get a photo of the patch of grass?
Who cares? It's no real.
Hopefully.
It's not
Just
real.
a photo of it. Do they send the same photo to every fan?
Buy a star and have a Merry Christmas, or buy a little bit of the moon or whatever like that. It could be China, United States, and then your little bit of the moon. Do that. That would be way better.
Or at least buy a brick at the club, because you can actually see that.
Aye.
And visit
that's
it.
a bit more traditional.
Aye,
Yeah,
visit your
you can
brick.
stand next to it.
You'd said, Andrew, I think on our group chat, you were just like, why do you not just zoom in on Google Earth? You'll see the exact same thing without having to pay 30 quid. I genuinely think clubs should have an option of outright, any of this nonsense stuff you want to buy. Because again, ultimately, people want to put money back into their club, right?
Yeah,
That's the whole
exactly.
point of this stuff. And they want to feel connected to their club. Why don't they just have a button like on the website, which is, do you want to buy a virtual piece of grass for £30, or do you want to just give £30 direct to the club and we'll say thank you very much, give a message from the club? Because that's ultimately what it is, rather than going through these third-party nonsense Ponzi scheme companies that are trying to sell everything digitally. Just give the money direct to the club, because that's all the fans really want to do. I don't
What
get
happened
it.
to a good old raffle, right? A good old raffle at the end of the season. Get the tombola out, boys. Come on. Right, okay, let's rattle off a bit of news before we get stuck into the football over the weekend. There's a bit of confusion going on at Rangers at the moment. Finn, I don't know if you know much about this. John Bennett, the chairman, is stepping down for health reasons. There's no confusion about that. But it's just a confusion about the leadership at the club, because there's no chief executive, because he's went away to Saudi, I believe. And then there's no head of academy as well. Like there's some real leadership problems potentially at Rangers. I don't know if you know much about that. You can shake your head if you want.
But no, yeah, it's all just a bit of a mess. I mean, we kind of alluded to it a bit last week. I think it's been something that's been a bit of an issue in terms of the running of the club for a number of years. I think if you look back to the season that they won the league title, almost every decision that they've made at a board level or a governance level of the club from then has probably been the wrong one in terms of the players they've signed, the managers they've brought in, decisions off the park, and it's just kind of left the club in a bit of a mess right now, maybe even setting them back a number of years on and off the park, I'd say. It's maybe, I mean, it's such a shame that he's stepping down for health reasons, and obviously you wish people the speediest recovery and all that. I don't know if it's the worst thing for the club for John Bennett to be stepping away, because I just hearing some of his interviews, and they've been fairly few and far between, I'm not sure he was the right person to be helming the club. But Rangers do have a bit of a governance issue, and I think that there's a lot of cooks spoiling the broth at the moment. They kind of just need people day to day running the club, and I mean, surely they're further away from hiring a CEO now, which they desperately need now that there's no permanent chairman. So yeah, it's all just a bit of a mess at the moment.
Everyone's talking about VAR again, unsurprisingly. I mean, it was a hell of a weekend. But have you guys had a chance to look at the SFA show where they had Willie Collum talking about some of the VAR decisions?
Yeah, I think it's good. It's good for a game to have this. I
It's
think
really
it's
good.
interesting. And yeah, we're finally getting a little bit of insight, a little bit of understanding, explanation. It's good. What I don't want though is when you get the likes of the Daily Record trying to make this into clickbait. The way they worded their story during the week was pathetic. Actually,
What did they say?
The way they made out that, I can't remember which ref it was, but he was basically advising a Rangers player to not make a challenge, like he was coaching him through the game, and it was
daft.
just to rile up Celtic fans. Basically, that was the whole point of the article. Now, what some fans don't understand is that's what refs do throughout a whole game. And I'm hoping that by hearing more from the refs, we'll understand this a bit more, and fans will get a clearer understanding of what refs actually do during a game. But from my own experience during the COVID times when there were no fans in the ground, this was very common to hear refs advise them as they're doing certain things. If they go and do what they expect them to do, it's going to be a foul. So they're giving a complete narrative, a live commentary almost of the incidents. It is completely normal. So what I don't want is tabloids start sensationalizing everything that's coming out in this video, because it will put off certain refs wanting their audio released. And that is the last thing we need. We need the refs to have this audio released, because we want them to become humanized, and we need fans to understand what they do. So this whole show is great. We just need everyone to behave better and respect it a bit more. And I think it'll be really good in the long term.
I think it's a fantastic point you make, Laura, because I think football fans in general don't realise that referees during a game, I think they only think that refs talk to a player when there's an incident and to their other officials if there's something contentious. It's not like that. It is a 90-minute dialogue that is continuous. They are constantly talking to the VAR team, to their officials, to the coaches in the sidelines, to the players on the pitch. It is non-stop. And actually their job is, they're kind of like the conductor. They're trying to allow the game to flow as much as possible, which might sound a bit silly because we were always talking about, oh, they're breaking up the game, they're blowing for everything. But like that, ultimately, that is their job, is to try and facilitate the game with as few breakups as possible. And that is why they say all these things. I think you make a brilliant point about the media, because this is the kind of thing we're desperate for this. And the SFA, as much as we kind of shouted at them for the way that they conduct themselves a lot of the time. This has to be applauded because it's brilliant. This is what we want. We want transparency. And if you notice that, like, see if you actually watch it and you see the comments underneath and the discourse around this stuff, it's brilliant because people are like, all right, that's why they're making that decision. Oh, I didn't know. That's why they interpret it that way. And it just, I think it's this thing with the SFA a lot of the time, I think previously, and hopefully this signals a sea change in this, their response to a lot of stuff is putting their fingers in their ears or burying their head in the sand. And they're like, actually, everything's great, marking their own homework. And it's like, if you tell fans and treat them like children that what they're seeing or experiencing is not what they're seeing or experiencing, it's gaslighting. It's that
exactly.
is not the way to go about the situation. The way that you try and bridge that gap is that you try and start a discourse, you try and have channels of communication where exactly what they're doing with this VAR show. I think it's to be commended. I think it's great, and I really hope that the media get alongside it and help explore it, not, as you're saying, try and create nonsense sensationalist headlines or narratives that actually aren't even there to begin with.
It was what surprised me is I think, most football fans have played football, and if you've played football with a referee, all referees do that. Like even Sunday League, like the referees will say, "Don't foul there." Don't put your leg in or keep your hands down, stuff like that. Like it's just, it was very bizarre to read that in an article when they're supposed to be professional about talking about the game. Speaking about the game, just we try and promote our game as much as possible, but just to flag, there was no Scottish players, by the way, under 25 in the Celtic or Hearts squads on Saturday, which I think is really, really sad. But we do have boys that are playing for Las Palmas, Napoli or Vancouver. So that's quite good. Like Sir McTominay and Gilmore, they both made their debuts for Napoli. And did you see Stuart Armstrong scored for Vancouver as well with a certain Ryan Gold assist?
Straight out of Tannadice.
Exactly. Get that in your NFTs. Buy a digital goal from McTominay or Armstrong. There you go. That'll sell better. Right, shall we get stuck into what happened to the weekend? Yes, I think we should.
Stranraer stay in League 2, and can I say, John Hanna, Muriel Gray, Ali McCoist, Lorraine Kelly, Worley's roundabout, Kirsty Young, your boys took a half Aberdeen.
So a brace from Pape Gay ensured manager Jimmy Tillin's unbeaten start to the season stretches now to an incredible 10 games. They're level in points for Celtic as well at the top of the table with just goal difference splitting them. So what's the secret to all of this? We're going to have Don's fan and host of Red Tinted Glasses, Glen Schreuder, who joins us now. So Glen, you can tell me what is the magic sparkle that the Swede has brought to Scottish football, and particularly Aberdeen. It's an incredible start, and you wouldn't have imagined this to happen. Or did you?
I don't even think the most optimistic Aberdeen fan could have imagined we would have won the first 10 games. I know you could caveat and say the fact that some of those games included the League Cup group stages, and I know people will comment on a favourable League Cup run as well, but you can only beat what is in front of you. And I guess, as Thelin says, stay calm, be humble, and the results have followed.
Is his kind of interviews, are they something that Aberdeen fans have enjoyed compared to previous years when it's been people who have maybe known Scottish football and known faces that maybe come out with the same sort of phrases often?
I think football fans in general love a good soundbite, and it doesn't matter who's delivering it. The biggest, I guess, problem is if they can then back that up when it comes to a Saturday or a general match day. And Tillin's squad is currently doing that. But what I love about the interviews is it's not about him, it's not about the team, it's about the club as a whole, including the staff, whether it be the cleaners, the chefs, but it's also about the city as a whole, getting everybody involved and trying to make it one collective getting behind this. And we saw at the weekend over 17,000 fans at Pittodrie for a game against Motherwell. That's huge. That's probably unheard of in recent seasons.
That was amazing as well, wasn't it, guys? Like the the whole pyro display before the match. Like I think when I set this interview up with you, Glenn, like you could tell that you were thinking about Laura and all of the things that she's been talking about for years, having pyro. I mean, Laura, you've seen the scenes as well, haven't you?
It's class, yeah. It's absolutely brilliant. I don't really care if it's in the stands or it's the club that's organising it itself. Just the fact it's there, and this time no one could complain about it as well because it was all done safely and legally. Great, even better. It was a great spectacle. It's really good for the club to get behind this sort of thing. I know they've hired Steve Cormack to work with the supporters, and it's stuff that Alan Burrows has talked about for years as well. And I think the two of them coming together has worked really well. I mean, Glenn, you've obviously been in the stands for it. How has it been to experience? Have you noticed a big difference in terms of the kind of match day experience and that kind of fan culture?
Yeah, huge. You know, the display in the Richard Donald stand pretty much kind of took me back to an episode that you guys had done last season with the guy from Holland about the kind of safe pyro and the way that we handled that. But in terms of, as you say, Stephen McCormack coming in and working with the club as the supporters engagement officer, we've got flags in stands every match day. Kind of reminds me of St James's Park a little bit. It gets that crowd built up, and I think we've seen it. We saw it in Dingwall, Queen's Park, late goals for the club this season, which turned into victories. Fans this season aren't turning on the team. They're sticking with the team and giving that backing right through to the 90th minute, which has really changed days. And I think even Callum Davidson picked up on that in the win over Queen's Park.
Can I just go back to something around the whole Thelin thing as well? That, I mean, his record is incredible since he's come in, and it's obviously looking at a couple of, I think, the players that he's helped bring in as well, which is just fashioned this really exciting Aberdeen side to watch.
Yeah.
That he's taken players that have maybe been struggling for form before he arrived, who have already been at the club, and bringing in some fresh faces as well. But is it purely just Thelin, or something that you said there was quite interesting? There seems to be like a feel or an atmosphere around the club that feels a bit different to what's been there before. Is this something that the club has been working towards now, and Taylin's coming in to galvanise all that? Because I mean, as an outsider looking in, the work that Dave Cormack's done since he came in hasn't always worked, but it seems to have been he's trying to do things in a progressive way and trying to take the club forward. And it seems to be, to me, that a lot of that hard work's kind of coming to fruition on and off the park now. Do you feel that Taylin's kind of the galvanization of all of that hard work that's been going on for a few seasons now?
I think a little bit. The club have got a DNA scheme that fans can buy into, and the DNA scheme ring fences money for the football operations as the club sell it. But DNA holders can go to special Q&As with the manager. And I was recently told at one of the DNA events, one of the fans had asked, you know, what did you see from the squad last season that, you know, you've suddenly got a tune out of the likes of Shayden Morris, Pape Habib Gueye, we've already mentioned. And Thelin said he didn't watch any of the games last season because he didn't want to judge the players without knowing what the instruction had been from Peter Levin or Barry Robson. So he's judged every single player on only what he's seen at Cormack Park or during his tenure. And for me, that's really interesting to hear, because players that have probably suffered on confidence, Shayden Morris in particular, you look at him with 1 goal, 5 assists already this season, a real change in how he's kind of performed. A manager that's not kind of had a perception on him before just coming in and then giving him the confidence. I think that's really kind of, as you say, Finn, that galvanization that's been missing around the place. And, you know, maybe that calming influence, but not that hardline manager that last time I was on this show that Neil Warnock was, Andrew.
Or Jim Goodwin for that matter as well, who's a pretty hard guy to shout over. But I think one of the standouts players, not just Morris, but you know, Gueye, the goal he scored at the weekend, the opener, kind of seems to sum up the confidence that he has. And it's came from nowhere because he's been at the club for a little while. I remember Barry Robson signing him for a bit of money, and then he disappeared for a bit. and now he's back with a bang. And the question from anyone who's not an Aberdeen fan is like, where has this guy came from? And oh my God, he's super talented.
Yeah, that goal was reminiscent of Gareth Bale from Real Madrid. Was it against Barcelona when he was running down the touchline?
Yeah.
It was the
I
Copa
think
del
he
Rey
was
final goal thing.
he was sent out on loan to Christensen and came back at the end of July. And I think during his spell in Christensen, I think he had a couple of goals, a lot of assists as well, and he was being played out on the wing. And when he's come back under Thelin, he's been playing in that number 10 or being put out onto the wing. But yeah, where that goal came at the weekend, even I didn't have any faith when he burst into the box. And I think the fact that he finishes it at the near post sold the Motherwell keeper and the defenders as well. But, you know, with Leighton Clarkson just coming back to fitness as well, Thielen's got a welcome headache about whether you play an informed Habib Gay or you bring back Leighton Clarkson. And these are the sort of headaches as an Aberdeen fan. You can't believe that you're questioning whether or not Leighton Clarkson gets into the starting 11.
Yeah, true. But, you know, that was always the question or the fear for Don's fans when you lose someone like Majowski. You know, who's going to step up? Someone's stepped up now. So do you think that there's opportunity, even, you know, your next game against Dundee? I think that could be that could be like a proper Don's record if you win 6 league games at the start of the season. I think the record was set from the 80s when the first 5 league games were won. Is that right? So you could break another record next week.
Yes, I think that is right. But I've always felt that the Dundee game into October is where this squad will be tested, in inverted commas, or certainly, to use the word that's being branded about Scottish football right now around Aberdeen, that we haven't had a test. But, you know, on your point about Bojan Miowski, we've had 14 different goal scorers this season already. And I think that says a lot about the squad, that other players in other areas of the pitch are stepping up to take on that responsibility that's been left with that absence that Bojan's kind of given us.
Nice one, Glenn. Well, we'll have to wait and see if the telling tales will stay true throughout the season.
I'll be back when the ribbons are on the trophies.
No, you won't.
I'm just going to say, Dunfermline fans, Dunfermline, well done tonight. You pumped us, no twadoots.
Always good to have Glenn on the show. What a boy. What a boy. We'll see if he's still a happy one come next week when they play Dundee. But do you know who else was a happy boy? David Gray. He was happy because Hibs finally won a game in the league. They beat St Johnstone 2-0. Goals from Mikola Kukarevich and Martin Boyle. Really nice goal from Boyle, actually. But yeah, David Gray saying he can finally catch some sleep after their winless start to the season, playing on his mind. What else happened? Celtic were 2-0 winners against Hearts. So it is Celtic and Aberdeen, actually, that are still, you know, 100% record. But Celtic, of course, this week I've got Champions League football. Laura, are you involved in the Champions League this week with TNT?
I am indeed.
Are you going to be in Glasgow?
I'm not. No, I'm not going to be in Glasgow, but I am saving that one for later in the campaign, hopefully.
Well, do you know who is going to be in Glasgow? Finn?
You?
Vladimir Weiss.
I thought you were going to tee that up as I'm going to be in Glasgow.
Nope, I'm not.
Vladimir Weiss. It's not quite as exciting.
Yeah, Vladimir Weiss, that Rangers cult hero from way back when. I mean, was he not like 21 when he went to Rangers on loan from, was it Man City?
I think it was Man City, yeah. And it was about 13, 14 years ago, and I think he's genuinely been linked to the club every single transfer window since then. Always spotted in like Prestwick home base or something, having just got off the flight on his way to sign. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see him. And
so he's the manager of Slovan Bratislava, not Slaven Bratislava, Slovan Bratislava, and they're top of the Slovak league. A lot of Celtic fans thinking that it's going to be a scoosh, but a lot of Celtic fans really happy with the draw. I mean, I know it's Bratislava, but they've also got Borussia Dortmund on the 1st of October. Then they go to Atalanta. amazing place, by the way. Like if there's any Celtic fans going there, just go to the old town in Bergamo. It's amazing. It's so pretty, and there's some great food up there too. Stay away from the new town. It's just a bit kind of financial district. Then they've got Leipzig, then Bruges, then Zagreb, Young Boys, and Aston Villa to finish. So it's a really exciting one. Laura, you're wincing. You're kind of like, are you worried about this
No,
Battle of Britain tag?
I think it's brilliant. I thought Celtic have got really, really lucky with this draw. I think especially their home games, you're looking at a realistic 9 points. I mean, I'm saying that with a pinch of salt because they've been so bad in Europe recently, so I'm not expecting miracles and turnarounds, but these are games that Celtic can win, and if they can take it to Villa on the last day, which I don't know if everyone is across the new setup of the Champions League. Obviously, it's not the group stages anymore, it's this league phase. Celtic have a very good chance here to at least get into the playoff for the next round of the Champions League, and I think this new setup is actually quite exciting for them as well.
Well, they've had a perfect start to the season. I think they have to be getting 3 points this week against Bratislava. And if they, heavily score, it'd be pretty special to see Celtic top of the Champions League. To have a Scottish team at the top of that above all the big super financial teams, that'd be pretty nice for Scottish football.
And just a note that obviously it's just Champions League this week, so Rangers and Hearts will play the following week, which we can chat about next week's show. So it's just Celtic's time this week.
Well, we're not going to ignore Hearts. Sorry, Hearts fans, but 6 straight defeats now. Steven Naismith was also saying post-match with regards to the Celtic game, he thought both handballs in this match were exactly the same. Although the difference really clearly, I thought it was cleared up pretty well with Liam Scales. It hits above his elbow, which the rules state is not a handball. Whereas the other one was definitely a handball and definitely a penalty for Celtic. But I think it's 7 straight defeats, in fact, actually, for Hearts in all competitions. And you think Steven Naismith had this sort of negativity surrounding him at the start of last season, but turned it around. Now, we're probably going to have to get a Hearts voice on this show sometime soon, because you would think that Naismith deserves the chance to have more time. But how much time should he have to turn this around? Because it's pretty bad at the moment.
I think at the start of the season, we always see this as always a club that looks like they're just plummeting and there's kind of no way back. I do think it's important to try. I think closer to Christmas time, when you start to see the real patterns forming in the league table and everything, I think that's the time to really see what's happening, because you've kind of played everybody once by that point, and you're getting through it. I think with Naismith, I think he proved a lot of doubters wrong last season, but it's one of the things I often wonder about these more inexperienced managers, that it's actually, you tend to fit, and Barry Robson was a good example at Aberdeen as well, where they tend to start off quite well because it's like that fresh impetus when they come into a new role. But it's maybe when things start to get a bit difficult and they really start to face challenges, and it's like, how do you pick that up again? And the thing is, you have to just learn it through your career. But a lot of people get the chance to do that and grow through that, maybe not at quite a high level, and where the pressure's quite as strong. So I do wonder if it's maybe something about the level of experience that he has kind of catching up with him at this point. You kind of hope not, because we want to see good young managers coming through. And by all accounts, he's a really good coach and everything. But Hearts as a club, like you look at their record over the last, like, say, 10 to 15 years, it's always bizarre, because it's like third, 6th, relegated, promoted as champions, 4th, 3rd, relegated. Like, it's just, they've got the most bizarre, elastic kind of like history over the last 2 decades or so. And you hope they don't get relegated this season, but it's just, it seems to be this kind of like weird yo-yo thing. And I don't know if the rigors of playing in Europe as well as maybe catching up with them. I was mentioning this the other week. It seems to be turnabout with Aberdeen and Hearts, who qualifies for Europe and then starts the next season absolutely abysmally. But I think he's earned the right to try and at least get to Christmas, trying to turn it around. But the statistics are pretty pretty
Yeah, they're
damaging
really,
at the
really
moment.
bad. I hope he doesn't get a wee lump of coal at Christmas saying you're sacked, because that would be nice. But that's brutal of you, Finn, saying give him till Christmas, then sack him. That's the time to sack managers, Christmas time.
Start the new year
Brutal.
afresh, you know? Yeah, it's great, yeah.
Did you guys see much of the match between St Mirren and Kilmarnock? Because, oh my God, it had everything. If there's, there's always a fight of the year in boxing, but this was one of the most enjoyable matches I've seen for a long, long time. So it finished 2-2, but there was all sorts going on. There was tackles, there was goals disallowed by VAR, there was potential red cards flying all over the place. But Joe Wright, this is the thing with Kilmarnock. So it finished 2-2, but Joe Wright got sent off for Kilmarnock for, shall we just say, punching Sean Rooney in the balls. That's what it looks like.
That's a bit harsh.
No, it
That's
looked
bit
like a
harsh.
wrestling move, like a low blow, like right
Oh,
between
I
the legs
thought
from a
it was his
corner.
stomach.
Nah, it's definitely
And
right
I
in the
thought it was
sack, Laura.
open-handed as well. I didn't see a clenched fist.
Oh, open-handed is even worse. to be
Yeah, no,
honest.
that's like you don't a bit of slap and tickle. No, thank you.
Oh, no.
No, this was a sore one. But the interest, so a little bit of context. So Derek McInnes has kind of slammed his player, and he's said that he's fined Joe 2 weeks' wages because it's not his first red card, it's his second. I think he's only been back. This was his second game back after being sent off, and I think the opening day. It's also Kilmarnock's fourth red card in 5 SPFL matches, which is a terrible record. So anyway, McInnes is setting his stall out, making sure Kilmarnock fans know, he's trying to stamp this sort of behaviour out. It's fine. It's still quite funny. He punches them in the balls. However, I wonder if Sean Rooney may have deserved it because in the match, if you have seen, he kicks, I think it's Kyle Vassell. Kyle? Vassell. Vassell's on the ground, and Rooney just like kicks him once when he's on the ground, like quite hard, and then he's trying to get up and he kicks him again really hard. And there's that thing there's that unwritten rule in football, if you get a dullion, you'll either get one back or the opposition's teammates are going to get you. And that feels a bit like that is involved. Yeah, really, I just think it was
It's
great.
the fact he went in twice. Once is sneaky.
That is not
But
great.
it's the
Yeah.
fact he went in twice. Once you could maybe argue is a yellow. Twice is completely intentional. And the fact that he didn't get booked at all
Aye.
is incredible. He should have been off the pitch.
So that, well, apparently the referee, if the referee hasn't seen the incident, VAR can't get involved, which I think is, I think
because it's
that's
it's the
bonkers.
middle of the pitch, so you've got to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah, that's fine, but I mean, this highlights a reason why VAR should get involved. No, say like you need to
I
have a
think
look
so.
at this. By the way,
No.
Yeah.
No,
No?
it's not. No. Let's still keep some authenticity of our game, please, without having to replay absolutely everything that happens across
So
the pitch.
Laura, is it a red card?
It's a red
offence?
card.
Right, okay, so VAR
But
should
these
have got
things get
involved and
missed.
sent him off.
These things get missed all the time. It didn't change the course of the game, and in fact, we actually got a really good game out of it because we got 4 goals, 5 actually, and it caused a bit of drama. So we if that had happened, it could have killed it as a contest. You can't be starting to re-watch incidents at the halfway line. I'm sorry, that's just too far. We need to draw a line here. There shouldn't be VR for anything, never mind that.
I just love Laura, the way that Laura sees the game like this. It's just like, I think it's your inner 65-year-old Glasgow taxi driver coming out, Laura, just being like, what's happening to the game? What's happening to the game when a guy can't stamp on a guy's balls in the halfway line and then gets slapped in the penalty box and the ball's back 5 minutes later? The game's
It's a
gone.
contact sport. It is
It's
a contact
woke
sport.
nonsense.
It's not a kick someone in the leg when they're down sport, nor is it a punch in the ball sport. But I thought that was quite funny. What I really enjoyed as well was, but did you see Derek McInnes? After St Mirren thought they'd scored a winner in the last minute, and then it got chalked off because there was a high foot kicked. I can't remember who it was. Kicked a player in the face, so it got ruled off for that. Derek McInnes is obviously getting it in the neck off of some of the St Mirren fans, and he just gives that little look of like, because McInnes has barely lost to St Mirren. So I think since he's been managed St Johnstone, Aberdeen, and now Kilmarnock, I think he's only lost one game. And amazingly, he's from Paisley as well. I think it was Pie and Bovril that put that stat up, and it was amazing.
I think it's like 60 odd games or something like that. But yeah, he's only lost once, I think, in 60 games across 3 different clubs to St Mirren. It's incredible.
Oh dear, hilarious. Right, elsewhere, Ross County beat Dundee 2-0, big win for County. And then Rangers on Sunday, they got a 1-0 victory against Dundee United. So not a happy time to be in Dundee, unfortunately for them. Right, I think that's us. We have to wrap up. We'll do more lower league stuff next week. Just quick, I think it's Dumbarton that have drawn every single one of their league matches this season. So they may be unbeaten, but they're also winless. How bizarre. Maybe next week they'll get a victory. Just don't lose. But yeah, so for now, Finn, thank you. Laura, have a good week, mate, on TNT's Champions League coverage. I hope you have fun. Where are you going to be? Are you going to? Can you tell us where you're going to be?
I'm on a week at home this week. I'm not
Oh,
on
what?
site anywhere. I know. I'm not.
Well,
on
maybe
site
I'll
this
see you in
week.
the office then, because I'm working for you.
See you during the week then.
Yeah, that would be good. Class.
Lunch in person, podcast in real life.
Oh God, disgusting. Right, if you're still listening, thanks for doing so. But yeah, it is that time to just go away. Just listen to something else. It's good for you. Goodbye.